How do you win the dating game as an Asian guy? I have put together a collection of my best answers for Asian clients. In this first question, the client asks me, is dating different as an Asian guy if you move away from the States, if you go to a different country? How is it different? Okay, and here's an insight into that will help you with your dating life.
When you're outside of the States, Canada, UK, right, that as an Asian guy, you now are you're eligible for competition. They'll no longer just be like, I'm not gonna even talk to you because you're Asian. So then after a while, it's like, okay, being Asian is part of it, but really just like this, it's the skill to influence and attract people. How do I do that for myself? Because even if I do it for the girl, I can still apply this to my interviews, to my friends, to other areas of my life, you see. So then it becomes, how do I build this skill set? And then it becomes a fun game, because it's a game about how can I tell my story to the world. And that is a very fun thing to do, even if you're struggling at first, right? And people struggle too much, they give up, and that's why coaching helps. But it can be, I encourage you and my other clients to see it as like a fun game of like building your own story and how to tell that story in a way that gets you results in dating.
In the second exchange, there was this question about how to compete with white guys and what's different for them. And I discussed some of the differences between being Asian and being a majority, but more important than that, understanding the underlying principles of attraction and connection, so that no matter who you are, you can still achieve the results, okay? And here's the exchange.
I actually have a lot of female friends now in Taiwan who show me like their Bumble profile and the white guys hitting on them, right? Basically, their attraction is a given, so they don't need to work on any of this stuff on the left side. And a lot of white guys, they can't get to connection or comfort. They have like basic comfort, but sometimes the language barrier, but they can't get here. And so they don't hook up with a girl, or if they do end up hooking up every once in a while, they can't get her as a girlfriend. If you are competing for girls that are super high value, you still need to run this compared to other guys. And most guys don't do this stuff. And so it's basically chance and luck. So when you do have competition, you don't know what to do. Can you move to an island where there's 99 women and you're the only guy there? Sure, if you can find that situation, great. I don't know, I think of this as more like a skill set, right? It's like I can acquire this anyway. And then when you know how to do these things, you can use them to make friends too, right?
In this following exchange, I talk about the differences between dating girls in the States versus outside of the States. How to interact with a woman who has more traditional values versus more American values, okay? And the differences in her cycle as you're going through the dating process.
Culturally, girls here are not as down to hook up as soon as possible. So, like for example, in the States, I plan my first dates around logistically a hookup because it happens more than 50% of the time. But here, it's like less, like it hasn't happened yet to me. So I always plan my first dates, planning to see them again. So it's more of a long game. But once they're invested in you, they're very, very loyal. So that's one difference. Another difference is I don't need to be so cocky and so like kind of banterous. You need to get past that tipping point in America where she's like, okay, this guy's cool, you got my attention. Whereas here it's like I already have their attention. So then I don't need to run like all the attraction on the left side. I don't need to run that game. I can just run comfort and connection. Because attraction is assumed. So for average white guys too, like basic attraction is assumed, right? But for us, it's like we have to build the attraction in Western society. But here, I can just jump straight into comfort and connection. But it takes longer, right? Because their body counts, by the way, I asked all of them, it's super low. Like it's nowhere near the girls from the States.
Some girls just won't date Asian guys. Now here's a coaching exchange where I explain why that is, how to deal with it, and how you can still gain a really unfair advantage as an Asian guy. Watch.
Basically, the States, you have to factor in the fact that there's some girls who just won't date you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? And once you're okay with that, then it's like, what's the percentage of girls that would date me? And because of that factor, the population and the culture is really important. Once I moved to LA, and when I go to New York, it's not a problem because I don't run out of leads, and I don't have, the San Diego has a very like red state, like a little bit Republican, guns and military and stuff. So you can feel the social pressure there a little bit. I just bypass the girls who are just like want like white guys. But once I'm in LA and New York, the population is so huge and the culture is so diverse that maybe like 1 out of 100 girls will be like, oh, maybe 2 out of 100 girls, let's say 2%, right? Are going to be like, I want to date you because I don't date Asian guys. But for the most part, the velocity is so high and there's so many nines and tens that I could just go through with my skill set. As long as I go through the numbers, I go on one weekend, I'm sure that I will get like 2 or 3 stunners. Like for me, a stunner would be like a model 10, right? In LA, and I was able to do that. So I had no trouble in LA. Like getting a girlfriend in LA was not difficult at all. And once you know where to go and how to build social circles, in the beginning you can just go to bars and just meet them cold approaching. But as you escalate that hierarchy and you get into like the mansion parties and stuff, like the Playboy Mansion and other mansion parties, then it's like, then it's more of a matter of like how hot is the girl, but then for me it's also how smart is she and how do I find the good girls, and once you know how to do that, I have no problems dating in LA, and New York is not even a question.
Okay, if you're feeling down, if you feel like as an Asian guy you have to put in a lot more work, it's unfair, this is a coaching exchange where I'd address some of those issues that may help you.
The most important factor that makes people feel resentful is the lack of real friends and connections, right? And now being Asian in White Town could be part of that, but I can tell you I have clients who grew up as the only Asian kid in the, but he had the best friend who was white, or he had a black best friend and he never felt that. I believe that at each point in the life, we have a decision as far as what we think about things. 2 prisoners stared out the prison window, right? The bars. One person saw the stars, the other saw the mud in the ground. So I think every step of way in life, we can decide, do I choose to see the silver lining in this, or am I going to choose to focus on just like the things that I think are fucked up? And that shapes like your RAS system, your reticular activation system, and you start seeing more of these things over and over again.
There's a quick insight to Asian American girls and this pattern I've seen in dating. Not everyone, but seems to be a pattern.
I noticed that Asian girls who are Americanized have the most unreasonable expectations. But a lot of them, I think because white guys chase after them, right? Because they speak English well, they're not too fobby. And so they have this like weird entitlement, and it's like, bro, you're not even that hot. If you were in Asia, you wouldn't be able to compete, right? But because they're in the States, they have this entitlement. And yeah, but that's fine, because I don't find Asian girls in the States that attractive anyway. In fact, a lot of them are more attractive here in Taiwan. So, and they're not as entitled. When I see an Asian girl with a white guy, I'm like, oh, good. One less white guy I have to compete with. She just took him off the market.
In this following exchange, I talk about how white guys have a difficult time in other countries and why that is. You may not think so, but there's actually some very distinct disadvantages when they go outside of the States.
Like white guys in the States, they do a little better than us because of race, if you just measure that one factor. But they also find when they go to Mexico, Brazil, Eastern Europe, that they get better results too, right? So race is one factor, but it's not the only factor. It's more to do with the entitlement that women have in a first world country. Partially it's the Asian factor, because you're talking about an Asian guy in Taiwan, right, versus the Midwest. But I have white clients too who are just like, yo, online dating doesn't work for me. And I'm like, you're a pretty good looking guy. When I look at the profile, I'm like, dude, your pictures suck. It's like, when I see you, I talk to you, you're good looking. And he's like, really, I am? I'm like, for them, it's more of like, okay, if I want to compete here in the States, I have to optimize everything, right? Because the girls just have a higher level of entitlement here. And that's fine. I can do that. I can play this game. Or I go to a different place and I change the game. But when you change the game, I have this doctor that here, my career's here, my family's in New York. So for them, it's like, I can change the game, but it costs me in these other areas outside of dating. For some people, it's like, I don't care, man. I've been single for too long. Get laid or die trying, right? So my job as a coach is, if you want to stay in the States and you want to compete, I've done it at the highest level. I can teach you how to do it if you want. It takes a little more work, sure, but you might be a good thing.
There was a client that felt resentful about being Asian and being kind of excluded in school, and just overall this whole life he felt like an outsider. And here's an exchange where I kind of help him through that. I think it'll be helpful if you're having some identity issues in socializing and dating, if you feel like being Asian is an impediment to that.
I've been a hard difficulty for so long that hard difficulty now is like normal for me. And because that's the case, I have a higher skill set when I communicate with people, but also no one can replicate what I do. So I have no competition. So like when in San Diego, I had to really hone in. Like I was competing with military dudes who were buff, big, and they were overlooking me, and they could not steal the girl from me, right? And there was a couple of times where it got dangerous. So how did I do that? With connection triggers, right? Like actual game. I didn't win every time, but I was able to win like 50% of the time, and that's saying something for an Asian guy in San Diego, right? Yeah, that's the skill set. And once you have that skill set, it's like, well, I can do things that most people, they don't even know. I can like run tracks around them. They don't have no idea what they're doing. I don't do this anymore, but I would steal girls, within social circles, just to see if I could do it. I would try to get the girl to leave with me, because in order for me to win, someone else has to lose, right? One time I pulled her, this really beautiful Texas girl, and she was like holding my hand under the table, and the guy's trying to talk to her, and then I went with her back home. So those are just what's possible if you learn game.
Okay, I hope you found these coaching sessions useful. So if you feel like being Asian is somehow confusing, or perhaps you may think that it's stopping you from reaching your dating goals. If you want a full system as an Asian guy on how to actually improve your dating life, do online dating properly, talk to people, build a social circle, the principles of attraction that only work for guys like us, check out datingwithoutborders.net. There's a free training there. There's also free resources. The course is optional. It's really a masterclass I created specifically because I was an Asian guy who wasn't getting results, who was a 23-year-old virgin in the States for 20 years. And the process I figured out to actually succeed despite those factors, okay? Check out datingwithoutborders.net if you're an Asian guy, if you want an unfair advantage in the dating game. Enjoy.